Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1268B, and today's date is May 1st, 2017, and the title of the episode is Trump is About to Do the Unthinkable. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Well, it looks like the new health care bill, it's back for the third time now, and it looks like the White House is planning to get it passed. Gary Cohn and Reince Priebus said they think there's enough votes to pass the revised GOP healthcare proposal. We're going to get healthcare down to the floor of the House. We're convinced we got the votes, and we're going to keep moving on with our agenda. Now, I'm wondering, because Trump continually is out there saying that Obamacare is going to die on its own. And we've been following Obamacare for quite a while. And we know that the exchanges, almost more than half, they have gone bankrupt. Billions of dollars have been wasted. The premiums have been skyrocketing, and many people are taking the penalty instead of getting insurance. And we know that Obamacare is dying a very slow death. And I'm wondering if he's continually allowing them to push this piece of crap healthcare bill because he knows it can't pass. Because why would you want this same exact healthcare bill to pass to replace Obamacare, where they're pretty much exactly the same thing? And for a strategy to show the world that Obamacare is absolutely terrible is to keep it around. Now, he did make the promise that he was going to be getting rid of Obamacare. He's going to try to repeal it. Now, if he repeals it too soon, everyone can say, look what you did. You destroyed the healthcare system with this new health insurance, which is exactly the same, where there's really no difference whatsoever. All you're doing is rewriting parts of it and making the penalty go maybe to the insurance companies instead of the government. So he's letting Paul Ryan and the rest push these healthcare bills where he knows they're not going to get passed. He's behind it saying, yes, try to pass this. He knows it's not going to work because he needs Obamacare to die on its own. Because once it dies, how easy is it to pass a fantastic healthcare bill? Very easily. And this could be part of the plan. I'm not saying it is the plan, but it's very interesting how this is all unfolding right now. Now, we see from a couple of reports ago that the NSA, they reported that they weren't going to be collecting emails anymore. They're not going to be spying on the American people. And we come to find out that, again, they lied to the American people. And this individual, Binney, is the NSA executive who created the agency's mass surveillance program for digital information, who served as the senior technical director within the agency, who managed 6,000 NSA employees. The 36-year-old NSA veteran, widely regarded as the legend within the agency and the NSA's best ever analyst and codebreaker, was asked a question. Specifically, do you buy that the NSA has stopped spying on American emails? Or do you think they're just collecting under a different authorization program? And he responded, short answer, no, they haven't stopped. This is a farce, he said, given the bulk continuous domestic data collection and storage from the upstream programs Fairview, Stormbrew, and Blarney. This FAA 702, Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act has been a charade from the beginning. Specifically, the NSA is spying on all Americans under Executive Order 12333 and only talking about Section 702 to confuse the people as to what they're doing. It was a way to make people, Congress, the judiciary, think that they were trying to conform to the law. NSA, through Program Muscular, was unilaterally tapping the fiber lines between Google and Yahoo and other data centers, so that when they backed up their data between centers, NSA got it all, and the companies did not even know what was happening. He said absolutely nothing has changed. Basically, this is just one gigantic propaganda piece. making us think that they have stopped when they really haven't. So we really need to go in there and shut down this system one way or another, because again, they are violating all of our rights, and they're trying to make us think that it's for our security when it really isn't. It has nothing to do with security. They want to spy on the American people. They want to spy on government officials. This way, as we can see, they can use this information to blackmail certain individuals in getting them to do what they want, or to get individuals removed from their positions. And we can see this is really what it is used for. And they've made arrangements with other countries through Five Eyes. Some people say it's Seven Eyes, because you're not including certain countries like Israel. They use this excuse that they have this agreement, but really what they do is they let the other country spy. They collect that information and say, we never did the spying. We're just collecting the information from the other country. So we need to dismantle this whole entire system. And there needs to be much better oversight than what is happening right today. We see out in France, there are protests, there are riots. We see Marine Le Pen. Well, she's coming up and going to go head-to-head with Macron on May 7th. And we know that Macron, well, he's a former Rothschild banker. And basically, he literally had an affair with his teacher who was 25 years his senior. And he was only 15 back then. And I guess you can call that pedophilia. It would be called pedophilia in most countries. He eventually married her and moved in with her children. And we could see that he's been groomed throughout this whole entire period. And he's part of the deep state. He's part of the central banking system. And it seems it always goes back to the central banking system. But we can see out in Paris, there are protests and riots because they don't want Le Pen. Actually, the country wants Le Pen. The central bankers don't want Le Pen. And this is why they're pushing this agenda to make it seem like, well, look, the rest of the country doesn't want her. Everyone wants Macron. That's who we want. This is why Obama called Macron and said, listen, I give you my support. I'm not interfering in the elections like Russia has done in the United States, but he has interfered. He is throwing his support for Macron. He called them. It was published in the corporate media. People know about it. And that is some type of interference because it's pretty much what they were saying that Russia did. And Obama is doing it in France. But we can see just by Obama calling Macron and giving his support, this is where the central bank, the deep state, this is who they want in power. This way, they have control of the country. Now, out in Afghanistan, we understand that the United States government central bankers, they're in this country basically for not just one reason, but many different reasons. One, the poppy fields. They use the poppy fields to create opium, and they sell this across the world to pay for their covert operations. We have the gas pipeline that runs through Afghanistan. It's a strategic location. They have lithium, they have copper, and we can see that they use this to basically train. They use this area for the Islamic State. The CIA is embedded in this country within the tunnels in the mountain area. And we can see right now that troops have been removed from Afghanistan. They've been brought back into Afghanistan. And that is because during the presidency of Karzai, he didn't sign the bilateral security agreement. And that's why Obama said, listen, we're going to be removing our troops now. Once he was his term ended and the new president was brought in, he signed the bilateral security agreement. And then troops started to come back into Afghanistan. Now the Pentagon is out there saying that we're going to be bringing in about 3,000 to 5,000 troops into Afghanistan, along with an unspecified number of special forces troops on top of that. Now, officials are not saying which of the plans currently is being favored by the administration, but the White House is going to make the final decision, and it will be announced no later than May 25th. So we'll have to see what Trump comes up with, because again, the only reason to send troops in there is to protect the poppy fields, make sure the Taliban doesn't get control of the country and throw out the puppet government. And we'll have to see what move Trump makes at that point in time. Now, again, he could be going along with the deep state. He can make his move, and he could be bringing the troops in there. And we can see that they have control over him in that respect, in bringing troops into the area. But we need to look at the big picture and what is going on here. And we can see that with many of those individuals within his administration, even the generals, he says one thing, they say another. For example, Trump came out and said South Korea needs to pay for the THAAD missile system. McMaster's, well, he came out and said, no, that's not what's going to happen. The U.S. will pay for the system because there was an arrangement before Trump with Obama that South Korea would not have to pay for the system, so we don't have to worry about that. And he started to downplay Trump's suggestion that South Korea has to pay for the system. Many of the individuals in South Korea, many of the people living there, they don't want the THAAD system. The front runner for the elections in South Korea, which is coming up, I think, on May 7th or May 9th, this individual really doesn't want the THAAD system in the country. Actually, he wants to open up a dialogue with North Korea. And we can see that the deep state, well, they want something to happen, most likely before this period of time. And we can see the propaganda is continually being pushed out there. Now, yesterday we looked at this database of North Korea's missile testing, and it's not like North Korea started testing missiles in 2016, the end of 2016, going into 2017. They've been testing missiles for quite a while, since 2003. And all throughout 2003, all the way up to 2009, it increased the number of missiles they were testing. And 2012, 2013, it continually increased because they were testing their defensive system. And what's amazing is that nobody had a problem with North Korea doing this all throughout this time. Yes, they made mention of it, but it wasn't like we needed to go in there now. And the question, once again, why now? Now, North Korea is out there saying, we're going to be sinking the U.S. nuclear submarine, the USS Michigan, which is out in the Korean Peninsula with the USS Carl Vinson, with Japanese warships that are also there. And we can see right now that this most likely could be a setup, because the deep state might make their move before the elections to get the war started. They might maybe, have one of the subs go down or one of the ships get hit. Maybe it won't be completely sunk, but maybe it will be damaged, and maybe they can blame this on North Korea. Or maybe one of the Japanese ships that are there might get hit, because remember, they changed their constitution. If they are attacked, they're allowed to respond, but they cannot initiate attacks on North Korea. So to allow Japan to attack North Korea, they might hit one of their ships. Now remember, the deep state, they are getting very desperate right now, and they are getting ready, and they're pushing their agenda. If you notice, the corporate media, they're continually keeping the war talk very, very high to make everyone think that we are definitely going to war. There's no doubt about it whatsoever. And they're just waiting for Trump to say, yes, let's make our move. Now, the Japanese, they have reportedly deployed a helicopter carrier to the area to escort and protect the U.S. supply vessels in the area. And we can see right now that things are escalating in this area. Now, remember, Trump is speaking to the president of China. He's speaking to Duterte, and he wants to bring Duterte here to the country. Now, the central bankers, the deep state, they do not like Duterte at all, because Duterte's campaign was to go after the drug running in his country, which is really the CIA operation. He's also going to get rid of the Rothschild central banking system in his country, so they really don't like Duterte. This is why they call him a murderer, and this is why they continually bring up the idea that he's violating individuals' human rights, because every time anyone goes against the CIA, the central banks, they are enemy number one. Now, there was a question that was brought up to Donald Trump, and they asked him, would he consider meeting with Kim Jong Un? And President Trump said, absolutely, under the right circumstances. So he went on to say, if it would be appropriate for me to meet with him, I'd be honored to do it, Trump said. If it's under the right circumstances, but I would do that. Now, no other president has ever said this. And usually, when the president is in line with the deep state, with the central bank, first of all, they don't say they're going to break up the banks. They don't say that at all. That's a no-no. They also don't say they're going to meet with the enemy. Usually they say, no, not at this time, and they use phrases like the red line, you're with us or against us. But I'm not hearing this from Trump right now. And you have to remember, the central bankers, the deep state, those war hawks, they always talk in absolutes. Netanyahu, red line. Obama, red line. Bush, you're with us or you're against us. They always talk in these type of phrases because you better do what we say or else, and they always make conditions. And I'm not really hearing this from Trump. Maybe this will change. Maybe he will start saying it, but at this point, he is not saying it whatsoever. Now, the corporate media, they're making a very big deal about Trump is breaching diplomatic protocol, inviting Duterte without informing the State Department, and they're going to be continually doing this, trying to stop Duterte coming from the United States or making it look really, really bad because they don't want anything to do with Duterte. They don't like him. And what I see happening right now is a strategy within a strategy. Think about what has happened in the past, and we talked about it in length, where Obama was encircling China. He was getting all the Asian nations around the South China Sea, surrounding China, and setting them up with military assets. And then we had the Navy sailing the ships through the South China Sea, saying that they have the right to navigation, even though the United States has never signed the right of navigation. Now we have Duterte, who is in control right now. And Trump is working with the Chinese president to calm the situation down. And we have Chinese warships that will be docking in the Philippines, the first time in decades. And China is allowing the Philippine individuals to sail their fishing ships in the South China Sea because they have an agreement. And this whole provocation within the South China Sea is disappearing. So under the covers, it looks like when Trump says, oh, the Chinese are going to work this out along with Duterte, I believe what's happening is they're calming the situation down in the South China Sea. The Chinese president is going to deal with North Korea. Duterte is going to help. And Russia and China are out there saying, listen, if we can have you dismantle or stop your nuclear program right now, the U.S. would stop their provocations in South Korea. And if this is agreed to, think about what Trump has just done. He stopped the deep state from provoking China in the South China Sea. He stopped the provocations in South Korea and stopped North Korea from developing nuclear weapons if, this is exactly what they're doing because so far they have shown no proof. And at this point, it calms the situation down and it leaves the deep state, the corporate media, on the outside. And I can see how this is all being formulated right now and how they're trying to maneuver this into having this done. But we're going to have to watch this very carefully because things can change in a minute because we know the deep state, when they feel their backs are against the wall, they will come out with something huge to try to get this war started. We see the UN, they have launched a new Syria war crimes panel. Now, we know the deep state, they are losing control of Syria. They can't get to Assad. And now they're going to have this new UN body task force. They're going to go in there and identify individuals guilty of atrocities in Syria. Now, of course, Syria is saying, absolutely not. We know what this is all about. You're not going to be looking at the terrorists. You're going to be looking at Assad. Russia, China, they're saying the same thing. The reason why they're doing this is because Russia and China, they continually veto the UN Security Council powers, and they continually stop the United States from doing what they want, and that's going after Assad. Now, we see that the Syrian armed opposition, they have confirmed they've received an invitation to attend the Astana talks, peace talks with Russia and Syria. And again, the United States government, central bankers, they're not going to like this. So we might see something happen in this area because they don't want them to go to peace. Because last time they paid the opposition not to go to the peace talks. And when I say paid, the CIA paid the opposition not to attend. Now, Russia is doing something very interesting. Russia has proposed a de-escalation in Syria where they're going to create 4 zones of reduction of tensions in the country with safety lines along them with checkpoints and monitoring centers. And they're proposing this. The warring parties would not be able to use any weapons in these zones whatsoever, and Russia, Syria, they will control these areas. Now, this puts the United States government central bankers, well, on the outside here. We know they wanted their own zones where they would control the zone, and Russia just one up them and said, we will create these zones to reduce tensions, to bring in humanitarian aid. And Russia is looking to do this in the Idlib province, north of the city of Homs, in eastern Ghouta, and in the south of Syria. Now, what they want to do is they want to create conditions to drive out the Islamic State, al-Nusra, and the rest. And by doing this, they can make these areas off limits. And they're going to try to do this, and we know that the United States government central bankers, they wanted their own safe zones. So we're going to have to see how this plays out and what happens in this area. And we know the deep state, they have been trying to bring us to war for a very long time. Do I think they're just going to stop? No. I think once they realize what is happening here and how I believe Trump is playing them, I know many people don't think this. Many people think he's part of the deep state. Part of me feels like he's part of the deep state. And then the other part, when he says he's getting rid of the banking system, well, that leads me to something else. And when I look at the strategy going on in North Korea, well, that's leading me to something else too. So I'm playing both sides right now. And if he is part of the deep state, guess what? Most likely we're going to war. Most likely we're going to have nuclear war. Because who's out there to stop this? Nobody. It would only be we the people. We the people would have to get millions and millions to march on Washington to say no war. So right now, we have this 1% hope from what Trump is saying each time that makes me believe, and when I look at his strategy, makes me believe that he's trying to do something behind the scenes, so the deep state doesn't understand what is going on here, to basically stop the deep state from starting this war. And I'd rather have a collapse without a war than a collapse with a war, because with a war, many more people are going to die, because that war will go nuclear. So we need to hope and we need to pray that this is exactly what he's doing, because if it is not, and he is part of the deep state system, well, we can expect war. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.